everyone, it's David Weeks with Enable Technologies. Thank you for joining today. This session that we're running today on Help Desk and NOC best practices for our larger MSPs. This actually came out of our meeting in Arizona, and this was based on super elite feedback. So I think the topic is relevant to everybody who's on the line, to our full super elite base. Without further ado, I'd like to invite two very excellent presenters. David Wilkeson, who's the CEO of MSP Advisor. I think most of you on the line probably know Dave. And as well, Chris Massey, who's the Director of Cloud Services with DRS. And I think, again, most of you know Dave. I think really probably these are probably two of the best guys in the industry in regards to NOC and Help Desk. So I have had a preview of the presentation. I know that there is a ton of value in this, and I think that everybody today will find that value as well. So we look forward to the feedback. So without further ado, I'm going to unmute the participant lines, and then I'm going to hand it over to Dave and Chris. So Dave and Chris, you are up.
Hi, guys. Thanks, Dave, for the introduction. Again, my name's Dave Wilkeson. I'm CEO of MSP Advisor these days. I do one-on-one business consulting and coaching with a number of MSPs throughout North America. So I've got clients that range from small 7-person managed services shops all the way up to, I think my largest has 225 employees down in the southern United States. My history, I've been a serial entrepreneur for 25 years. I started out in the late 80s with a PC VAR, built an ISP and application development shop. I joined DRS, which is where I hired Chris actually, back in 2005 when it was a 9-person
We're on mute.
VAR break-fix shop. And when I sold to my partners here a year and a half ago, it was an 85-plus person MSP and cloud provider. And I've been in a number of the industry groups like True Profit groups and True Methods and Service Leadership and VTN. Same groups a lot of you guys are in as well. Chris?
So I'm Chris Massey. I think I've gotten to meet several of you guys out at every time we are in Phoenix or Montreal. I try to make it out there. So I'm similar to Dave. I have a sysadmin or a technical background. I also was a sales engineer for a number of years. I like to talk and talk gibberish sometimes at times, but I'm currently the director of cloud services at DRS, so I have a number of different entities under me, including programming and the NOC. The MSP department is my big entity. We're a 16-person multi-level service desk, so multiple tiers, triage, level 1, 2, 3. We're going to talk about those in a little bit. And that triage role, we basically answer every single phone call into DRS. That's basically a technical-based call, and then it works through the different levels. I just put some numbers in there so you could sort of see what my team is. We run sort of a true pyramid, so we've got 8 level 1s in triage, we have 5 2s, and 3 level 3s, and we could talk a little bit about what those different positions do in a bit as well. Full carrier services and cloud services to support, which is a great back end for us. We've got a lot of brilliant people in our MSP department or in our help desk, but there's always that just sort of outside the box, bigger than the help desk tech, and we've got a nice supporting staff behind us there. Ticket count wise, we do about 700 new tickets a week from MSP customers, and these include the NOC alerts and things like that. And it seems like that was an average that I had probably a month or two ago, and I've increased that by 10-15% because of some new acquisitions in the last month. So it's been a crazy month this month. And that's just sort of a breakdown of the types of calls or tickets, how those get generated. 55% email, 20% phone, and 25% are those alerts or those sort of NOC tickets.
So let's start off by talking about the managed services models. These are the predominant models, and I think the life cycle that I've seen out through that growth stage. Most MSPs start out just as a single group. So they've got a couple of guys, 1, 2 guys answering the phones. A lot of times they're also doing on-site work. They're going back and forth. They're not necessarily even dedicated to the help desk. They quickly find out that doesn't work all that well and move to what I like to call a call sorting model, which is you've got predominantly level 1 and level 2 guys answering the phones, dealing with tickets, and then they may have one level 3 type of an engineer who is jumping in to either take a ticket or more likely they're jumping in to help the other engineers. The problem with that model is that you have a lot of difficulty trying to drive lower MTTRs, ensuring SLA adherence, and it just doesn't scale very well. It works up until a point, and then all of a sudden you really see a pretty precipitous drop in your customer satisfaction, which typically leads people into this gatekeeper model, like I like to call it, which is the triage takes all of the tickets. They look at the tickets. They ensure that the info on the ticket's correct. They close any invalid tickets like bounce backs and duplicates, merge the duplicates. They manage the queues or boards so that they're making sure that they're on the correct queues or on the correct boards. They're assigning priority, which is a biggie, of course. Our PSAs take these tickets in for the most part at the same level, priority level, so they're looking at it and deciding whether it should be bumped in priority. They're taking the priority 1 tickets, the really critical failures like outages and things like that, and they are directly handing it off to an engineer. So they're ensuring that somebody's getting right on that, typically directly escalating to that higher end engineer. And they don't typically work any tickets. That leads us to what I like to say is the most sophisticated model, and that is the true multi-level service model, where you've got working triage. So the triage, they're doing everything that the triage is doing in the gatekeeper model, but they have a list of specific issues that they work. And they're the common, quick kinds of issues. So, for example, password resets is a biggie. If you do a lot with Citrix or RDP, remote session resets. A lot of times, specific customers have specific things that have to happen that occur over and over again that you can't automate away, that are quick fixes. Maybe a service stops running or something along those lines that can't be automated. So those can many times be given to the triage. They then hand everything off to the level 1. So all level 1 engineers touch the tickets, and they're given specific processes in terms of how long they're allowed to work a problem. They're given specific things that they're supposed to do in every case, and then that escalates to level 2. Level 2, goes through the things that they can do, and then it escalates to level 3. The percentages on that slide are hopefully what number of tickets are solved at the various levels. So we like to see 55% or more of the tickets solved by level 1 and working triage, 42% by level 2, and then only 3% going to level 3.
So one of the things that, as Dave and I started to look at how to improve help desk process and how to make the help desk more efficient, we were a single group when I came on the department several years ago, 5-6 years ago. And we really turned into that first call sorting model. And I was that level 3. I was that higher level engineer, and I also served sort of as a manager at the same time. One of the things that I wanted to do was figure out, as we grew, we wanted to be scalable. We wanted to be able to get to that third model, that third level, and then finally that multi-level support model, which is always the most complicated, always the most difficult, and you really don't move to until you just become a good-sized help desk, right? Which most of you guys probably are. I've had an engineering background, so I've always looked at improving things and science and stats, and I always wanted a way to sort of science this transition up so that I could make sure that what we were doing from a percentage-wise or what we expected would happen was profitable and made sense financially. So one of the ways to do that, and Dave will talk about this in a little bit, but I thought it was important to introduce it here, is this cost per ticket, or this sample cost per ticket. So there's a couple ways to calculate this, or a couple ways that I've seen people do this. One of the ways we used to do it right off the get-go, and I never really considered this cost per ticket, but it was a way to just sort of say, how are we doing with our MSP contracts? Is you take your MSP agreements or or your monthly billings or whatever, and you take that number of tickets that you're working, and you sort of figure out, how much is a ticket actually are we billing per ticket, sort of a thing. What that doesn't take into account for is, what are we actually paying our employees and salary and all that sort of stuff. But it allows you to, once you get an average over all of your different MSPs and you see what sort of the company averages for MSP ticket closure, you can sort of figure out which contracts, you might have to work a few too many tickets and, you might be losing some money on prospectively. So those are the ones you can go back and you can add automation and things like that into play, or, worst case, go back and readjust the billings and make sure that's correctable. But the one way that I like to do it is I wanted to get some industry standards to start with, and that's what these are right here. That's why there's a little asterisk up there. There's companies like Meta Group and Help Desk Institute, and there's, Gartner does this. There's a bunch of different companies out there that will give you sort of based upon the industry salary ranges for level 1 help desk techs and level 2 and level 3. And the other thing that this includes is at a level 3, if we're working these tickets the way that we want to work these tickets, they've got a level 1 effort against them and they've got a level 2 effort against them. So, that 200 to 500 and 300 to the mean there, that includes that level 1, level 2 work as well as the triage. So these are just some averages out there, and then what you can do with this in the next slide is a lot of math, and the one thing that I wanted to point out with this guy is that it's just an example to sort of take those different models, put some percentages behind them, take some averages of what those level 1, level 2, level 3 tickets cost, and then just try to calculate what is the cost to the MSP or the IT department with these resolutions. So just an example, that call sorting model, we just had basically the level 1 and level 2 were acting as level 2 technicians for all intents and purposes. So we don't really have level 1 techs in there. It's just a group of level 2s and maybe a level 3 or so. Now, that's way too many tickets being escalated to a level 3, but you can play with those sort of numbers to see how many are actually being resolved early and then later. And then these were my goals, right? So realistic, the ones that are, password lockouts and those sort of things. And instead of putting a number in there for triage because they're, or like a $20 a ticket number, I just sort of put a lump sum in there, and this is like a couple triage guys, 50,000, something like that. That helps me calculate what that triage number is. So anyway, when you work through that, you can sort of see what your cost savings are as you move things. If you're truly working everything at the 1 and you're only escalating a percentage, and these percentages look different than what Dave showed you, because the way that I look at it is 45% of every ticket gets resolved, and then of the remaining 50%, 80% of those tickets get resolved. So we're just leaving, 4,000 tickets a year for our level 3 techs, which are the obviously the most expensive, or should be the most expensive techs to us. So, what this does is, it definitely shows that it's better to hire a higher experienced tech at basically the level 1 and the level 2 role and train them how to solve 50 to 60% of the issues. If you can do that, you can make the department very efficient, and you add those ironclad procedures on top of those expectations so that they know what to do. We'll talk about documentation in a little bit, and I think that really makes the department very efficient. So this showed me that what I'm trying to do is, as painful as change may be, when it was finally working, it would be very, very, very
He's acting like this is new, innovative concepts. You hire somebody.
Participant lines muted.
So let's talk a little bit about metrics. A lot of these are ones that I think you're pretty familiar with, and these are not all of the metrics that we need to be looking at, obviously, as an MSP. But these are the ones that I think are helpful in terms of managing the help desk. On the basic side, you've got your ticket open close ratios, which as a weekly rolling ratio, we need them to be 1 or less to be not losing ground on our tickets. The open ticket number, that's obviously varies. The number varies by MSP, but you should be looking for that to be flat or downward trending. CSAT is a big one, and that has to be introduced really early on in that life cycle, because when you start to make adjustments to get the MTTR down, to adhere to the SLAs that you're putting out, those kinds of things, if you're not careful, you can significantly impact those customer satisfaction feelings that are out there. So having that good CSAT measurement early on is really important. As you move past that into more sophisticated metrics, SLA adherence is the next one. That's important, obviously. A lot of MSPs that I've come in contact with, though, are pretty hesitant to really start enforcing these SLAs. And it's really been my experience that by pushing SLA adherence, what you're really doing is driving better help desk operations. A lot of people are worried about the credits and things like that they need to issue to clients. And for the most part, clients really aren't after the credits. What they're after is predictability. And that's really, as MSPs, that's really what we're selling is predictability. So I think that's really important to get good measurements, good ways to see that on a day-to-day basis inside the help desk organization. And then mean time to resolution, that's an important number. Again, every MSP is different in terms of what their sweet spot MTTR is. But once you kind of establish that MTTR for your MSP, now you're really looking for what's happening. Is it going down? Is it going up? Is it remaining flat? And as you make those changes to your organization, you can make decisions and see how that may be affecting that MTTR. Once you're through that, then you really get into some sophisticated calculations, and a lot of times they're more time-consuming calculations, but some of them are cost per ticket completed. So that's your actual cost of labor that goes into each ticket. And again, this is another one that we're really looking at trends, and we're looking to see the effectiveness as the operation, as you're making changes inside the operation. Are you driving those costs down? Are there specific customers, for example, that have a much higher cost per ticket, meaning those issues are being escalated higher in your help desk organization? And when you see those kinds of things, it triggers looking at better automation, looking at other ways that you can get in there and try to affect some change in those specific clients. Call abandonment statistics are typically coming out of your phone system. That's the number of hang the more sophisticated phone systems out there will let you run those reports, and it's worth looking at them. I think that, if you've got a higher number or an unusual number of hang-ups, that's indicative of not having enough people, obviously, answering the phones, and then looking at hold times, too, because you don't want people holding for a really long period of time, but you also don't necessarily want your phone calls to take precedence over your tickets that are coming in from email, which we'll talk about a little bit more here in a couple more slides. I like to use a predictive staffing requirement calculation. It's based on Erlang C, which is a calculation that's been used in the telecom industry for years to decide how many phone lines are needed to support a certain number of calls that last a certain period of time. If you can actually use those exact same calculations to look at, based on your ticket volume and your MTTR, you can look at how long or how many people you need at each staffing level, especially as you break that down by the tier that's completing the ticket. And then finally, more detailed MTTR by problem type, and of course, problem type classification protocols then are critical. Having processes that use hopefully an ITIL type of a classification system to classify each ticket by severity of the issue, so priority 1, 2, 3, 4 issues, the tier that completes it, and then also the customer. Those are all useful pieces of information that, as you're pulling levers inside of your help desk and NOC, all of these things, all of these metrics are affected. So you got to have your thumbs on these as you're starting to make significant changes in your help desk organization.
So the CSATs, I'm sure everybody's done some sort of a survey. One of the things that was extremely helpful for our company, and it's something that we really put into play across the board, not just for MSP, but for all of our customers, was we send out 100% on every single ticket that gets closed. We send out the option to fill out a CSAT survey. You've probably seen this on a lot of software, and it gets to be sort of annoying. So I think one of the real valuable things is to make it as painless as possible, super simple, and we even reward our customers. So we say, look, spend 2 minutes to fill out these 3 questions, and we'll put you in a drawing to win a Starbucks card or maybe an Amazon card or something like that. I think the value that you get from the feedback, both positive and negative, rewards you for any sort of cost that you would make. So these are just an example of the 3 questions that we use, and they're multiple choice, yes, no, they were the first 2. So, was the issue resolved to your satisfaction based on this experience? Actually, the last one is anything else you'd like to tell us, which is a fill-in, and then based on this experience alone, would you recommend us to a friend? So option O, some of those you can put some sort of a scale in there, 1 to 5, and we take those evaluations and we look at them on a weekly basis for the negative stuff that we can go back and actually dig into the ticket and find out if there's a way that we can improve the way that ticket was worked. We can also look at see if there's expectations. Maybe expectations weren't set on what a customer's SLA is. We do see that a lot with new onboardings because they don't maybe completely understand what the SLA is and how tickets are prioritized. But the last thing that we do is it's an awesome way to take the positive and reward your employees on a monthly basis. We grab that together, and I actually do it's almost like a college football national championship calculation to account for the number of positive ones that we get back and the number of negative ones and how many we receive. And I give out an award on a monthly basis to an employee, a nice size gift card for being sort of the winner. And what that does is it obviously makes them aware every time they're on the phone with a customer to make sure that that's a positive feedback. And one of the ways that we've done to sort of get people to fill these out at the get-go. We don't always do it now because it's become sort of a stock, but we almost solicit for it at the beginning. So when you're wrapping up a call and you're asking if there's anything else that needs to be done, you just remind the end user just to fill it out, positive, negative. Let them know if they thought you did a good job, drop your name in there, and they have the option to be entered into a drawing for a gift card there. So that's just one of the real positive things that we've done, and we've got a lot of value, both positive and negative. And I take all those positive responses, or at least a good portion of them, and I publish those out to the entire company so that the help desk is sort of on display for everybody, all that good stuff. And we address all those negative ones with the customer themselves.
Ticket selection is, I think, a pretty often overlooked issue. I think everybody kind of knows it's a problem at some level, but it's I think a more difficult one to solve. So having that predictable ticket selection is critical for meeting our SLAs that we're putting out there for our clients. But we really have to build processes that prevent our employees from cherry picking, because they see a ticket coming in from so-and-so, the last time they dealt with so-and-so, they yelled at them, or, couldn't follow directions, or, any number of other interpersonal issues there, or they see a ticket that's about a specific issue like a virus. They prefer not to have to work on that ticket. So they start cherry-picking tickets and skipping tickets, and like I said, it's a difficult one to solve. The other thing that happens if you don't have a really, really strong process for ticket selection is that you typically get the phone calls taking precedence over the less squeaky tickets like email and portal tickets or alert tickets. And the problem is you end up training your customers that if they really, really want quick service, they should pick up the phone and call you, which is not what you want. You really want people emailing their issues or entering their issues through a portal. So you've got to come up with ways to make sure that you take a ticket based on the priority and the order it came in. And that's really critical. That tool at the bottom there, that screenshot, the tool that I built for a couple of my clients that goes in and essentially figures out based on priority, and that one's built against ConnectWise, so it looks at the board and determines this is the next ticket that should be worked. So the process that's in place is that ticket number is entered into the ticket lookup, and that's the ticket that the employee has to work. They can't look at the list of tickets and say, "Oh, I'm going to skip 5292139 because of whatever perceived issue with that customer or that specific issue is." There's some specific recommended NOC functions. I like to call NOC the proactive services area. A lot of people, a lot of MSPs tend to mix those proactive services into their help desk operations, and the problem is, it's like trying to serve two masters. You've got proactive services, which is really about doing the same things over and over again, versus the help desk, which is really about answering actively those tickets that are coming in. So I like to call it proactive services. But these are some of the things. I think probably most of you are doing this. Maintaining your managed systems and your services, your backup services, maintaining all your internal tools like Enable and ConnectWise and AutoTask and those kinds of things. Doing the tuning and the setups and onboarding processes around Enable, and then also research and documentation. So taking the lead on pulling documentation together. Maybe that's done 3/4 of the way by the help desk guys as they're working, but pulling that together into a format, something that's more usable by the team. And then there's really two ways of doing alert handling, and I like to say the basic way and the better way. The basic way is those NOC guys handle the alerts, and I think the problem then is that you're trying to, again, have your NOC guys both react and act in a proactive fashion. So I like to see those alert tickets be mixed into the help desk tickets and be prioritized and handled just as if they were called in by the customer. I think that needs to be done, though, after what I like to call burn periods. So when you first do onboarding, everything is pretty noisy. Those alerts are pretty noisy. So I like to see the proactive services team or NOC team handle those tickets for, say, 30 days while they do the tuning and make sure that the alerts that are generated are as actionable as possible. The other thing about having the help desk handle those alert tickets are you have to create a good process for tuning, because if you don't, you just end up with a lot of bogus alerts that just continue and really are time wasters on a help desk. I don't think it's a good idea for the help desk to handle the results, though, because again, it's that two masters thing. They have to move on to the next ticket. They don't have time to watch the results of their tuning. There's a number of different approaches that I've had people use. Various organizations have various success with some of those things. Some of them create tickets actually for the NOC guys to adjust or tune a specific existing monitor. You might have an email list where you send out requests essentially for tuning, and there's the ability for everybody to kind of discuss that. And then some have used a change control board type of an approach to handle that. Chris?
So training is obviously really important. That goes without saying. One of the things, though, that I really experienced in the last several years during employee reviews and talking about expectations of what needed to be done in continued education and all those sort of things is, training occasionally became an excuse or lack thereof, right? So I think it's important not just to train, we'll talk about a couple things, but not just to train with, certain types of like documents or procedures, but also outside, like how to handle certain situations, how to actually work in the help desk. Especially when you're doing a lot of interns and you're trying to bring, maybe greener types of technical people into the fold. So what I tried to do when we started to grow is really push through that common training barrier, right? The idea that technical people don't like to share information. The way that I was successful at doing that was obviously including those SMEs or those level 2, level 3 technicians that knew the most about an application or a product or something like that, including them in the training experience. And I used a combination of different sort of learning styles, right? So this is an example of 3 different things that I do pretty frequently, right? I try to put lunch and learns into play. So lunch and learns, if you guys have not done something like this, it's extremely valuable. You want to give your employees a lunch or a period of time away. This is an option to sort of reward them and also put them in the room and put a presentation in front of them, maybe about a bigger issue. And these are really good for larger groups. We've done these company-wide to go over a new process or procedure, but these are very valuable to get somebody from like that higher level service, that cloud services or carrier services, or to talk about an ASA or a new type of an application that we have brought in. The team lead meetings are also really nice. So we do a weekly 30-minute meeting that we really keep on point, and the last 15 minutes of every meeting is held for some sort of a training. It may be a new customer that we're onboarding the following week or in the future. It may be about a specific situation. So one of the things that I did most recently was when I started to see that obviously maybe the university or college wasn't showing people how to work on the help desk or how to actually truly do ITIL processes, is I really put a set of training, like a slide deck around, these are the types of things we need to focus on, and this is why it's important to do this sort of stuff. I think it's easy to tell somebody to do something and say you just need to do it because you do it, but because I said so. But to be able to explain to them why it's important, I found a lot of value in that, right? So I let my level 3s run with those as well. So they may bring something to the table, like something they discovered or they wrote a document on. It's a good chance in a 15-minute sort of condensed period of time to do a real quick PowerPoint or at least go over some sort of a specific issue. And again, it's held to that 10-15 minutes, so you don't let those meetings go too long. The incentives, obviously, for self-training, I try to do that. I put that in employee evaluations for future goals always. ITIL is a great certification at the help desk in the NOC level. We ask all of our employees to go do that, and we will actually incent them for completing that certification, as well as obviously your Microsoft and your Cisco and VMware certifications as well. And I really try to sit down with the techs and find out, where do you want to be? Because I can only assume that you don't want to be in the help desk for your entire career. They've got some sort of a goal, so it's obviously important to grab that right off the bat. And on the next slide, so I'm going to talk about a couple of these different training sessions. These are some sample topics for some lunch and learns. Things like we've had our cloud guys come in and talk about VMware or Exchange, especially things that maybe the help desk aren't going to pick up or haven't done before. There's probably a document out there, but there's nothing better than showing it to somebody in a live setting. Procedural training. Obviously, you make lots of procedures and you make lots of changes to procedures as you grow or find they need to be refined. So very good to do that in the lunch and learn setting, as well as any sort of policy changes, right? Things like, okay, SLAs have started to get out of whack and we need to get back on track and talk about why that's important and what we can do to improve SLA adherence. So those are a couple examples of lunch and learns. The level 3 meetings, these are the 10 to 15 minutes. I let the level 3s pick the topics and bring those to me. Tell me about something that you think is really important you want to bring to the team. They found this very valuable, and I think it gives them obviously a lot of respect with their fellow coworkers and peers. And I like I mentioned, I use those short periods of time to maybe introduce a bigger topic. So a training session on an ITIL topic is going to be tough to fill in 10 minutes, but if I've got a bigger slide deck or a training course that I want my techs to take care of on their own time or when they get time over lunch, this will be a chance to sort of introduce it to wet their whistle, if you will, and that's become very valuable as well. And then the last slide here. So these are these self-study courses. This is something that I rolled out in the last year, and I thought it was pretty cool. I was kind of leery of giving my technicians something to do sort of on their own, homework, if you will. But, when they come to me and say, hey, I'm not comfortable on how to deal with a difficult situation, or I'm not comfortable in when I don't know something, how long I should stay on a ticket. So I've put together some very detailed slide decks, video training, those sort of things. And then what I've done is I've rewarded them for viewing these slide decks and actually taking a course, or taking an exam. I've created an online exam environment where they can go out there and they take a 15, 20, 30 question exam that just covers that material. It obviously allows me to realize they know what they're talking about there, but it proves that they really want to get out there and learn what has been presented to them. And I reward them via lunch or some sort of a side benefit, maybe a mouse or something like that. Just something that's a nice little side benefit, or for completing those in sort of a reasonable period of time. I don't leave those open-ended, but I'll ask them if they finish the training in 2 weeks and pass the exam, that they'll get something. And I also give them certificates. It's kind of a fun little thing, but we display them in the NOC and in the help desk to show that they're sort of subject matter experts in these different topics that I've trained on. And all the topics are based on some sort of documentation or literature. I like to read a lot of books about different philosophies on how to deal with angry customers and difficult situations. So I try to introduce those sorts of topics into my help desk as well. And then I think that is you, Dave. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want, hopefully, for most of you, this is pretty obvious stuff about meetings. But I've seen a lot of inconsistencies with meeting practices in my clients. So I wanted to stick this in here because a lot of them don't have their actual help desk operators in meetings very often, those kinds of things. And I honestly don't know how, without doing regular meetings, that you can really stay on top of a lot of the day-to-day issues. The two meetings that I like to use are the daily huddles, and I think this is good for any team, but it works well for your help desk operators. It's a set time, either at the beginning or the end of the day. They're short 10-minute, 5-minute meetings where everybody gets to talk, basically to say, I'm stuck on this, or I have this specific issue today that I'm worried about or I have to deal with. The team leads get to talk about things that they're aware of that are going to happen that day, so that the rest of the team is on the same page. If there's tours coming in, so that they've got a heads up. This is in some of my customers clients that have larger. They're in larger markets where they commute via car. I'm not sure how well it would work, with public transportation, but when they commute during a car, most of them have adopted something where they're doing it during the commute. So everybody calls into a line, and so they're doing it during that 45-minute drive into work. And I think that works really well. And then a weekly meeting, again, it's a longer meeting. It starts and ends at a very specific time. So there's no flexibility. You're not waiting for Mary to arrive or John to arrive. It starts at 11:30 and ends at noon, or whatever the time is that you do that. And really, you need everybody to be there. About the only good excuse is I was in the middle of working a ticket. But essentially, you pause. Everybody comes in to that 30-minute meeting. You generally will rotate through a couple of people that don't attend. So every week it's a different set of, say, 2 or 1 or whatever you need in terms of your volume that don't attend that meeting. But Chris was talking about this in terms of some of the topics that you can handle during that weekly meeting. So you give 15 minutes to your VCIOs and managers to talk about the onboards and environmental changes and things that are the big issues that are coming down the pipe. You do a few minutes of training, and then you give the employees a few minutes to bring things up. Again, not about tangents, very specific, short things. If it goes off on a tangent or turns into a longer discussion, then it has to be taken offline. But it's a way to kind of build that team mentality, and I think it's critical. Hopefully you're all doing something along these lines now.
So the documentation ties into the training piece. I think everybody wishes they had better or more complete documentation. I can assure you that when I started, where we're at now is light years ahead, but we're still not what I would consider complete. But a couple of the things that ways that I've actually been able to put together a really nice set of documents or things to continue to educate and train my employees on and sort of self-train is I've done a couple different formats. I mean, this binder, it's kind of old, right? Everybody used to have the binder when they went in the NOC, and I did it when I worked in healthcare, and I had a tape change, and I go and grab the procedure and do it. That gets sort of dated, right? I mean, as soon as you print it, the procedure's sort of out of date. So the first thing that we did was we used ConnectWise for our ticketing system, but I know a lot of the other tools out there do something similar. We use those tickets, those completed tickets and those notes in those tickets as a knowledge base. And I sort of put a requirement on each ticket that, when you've resolved that ticket, that you're putting this is how you do this the next time, and refer or put some sort of a flag so that it's easily searchable. That's become very, very helpful. That's one of the first things that level 1 technicians do when they see a problem that they've never worked, is they search and see if we've ever run into it again. Very, very minimal number of times do we find something brand new. Those sometimes take a little bit more time, obviously, and maybe go through an escalation, but hopefully out of those new experiences we get a good knowledge base for that. Now, for the bigger, more detailed processes, obviously having steps 1 through 12 is a great thing, and everybody dreads it, but it's really a simple thing to do with a lot of the new tools that are out there, a lot of the screen captures, and Microsoft has built a lot of things right into their OS to be able to record and snag different parts of your screen. So what we try to do is we give our technicians a couple of different tools, and then we give them a format. I've sort of set together, I've used Microsoft SharePoint as sort of our knowledge base for all documents, corporate as well as MSP. And then I use Microsoft OneNote in there. It seems like sort of a duplicate thing, but the benefit of OneNote, if you guys have never used it before, which I'm sure you have, but multiple people can be in there at the same time. You can make changes, it tracks changes, you can undo things. So really valuable when you have an expectation for your entire department to continue to just pile on top of more and more documentation. We've created different pages for each customer, and we've created sort of a standard set of sections, network, application, security, credentials. We don't keep credentials in there. We actually have a secure credential tool that will store everything in that you've got to log into, but we reference those. We'll put links to those different credentials so that you can just click on the link and log them. The other thing that I've done most recently, because I've found some gaps and I've seen some people that do things over and over and over again and have to explain it, is I've asked my level 2 and my level 3 technicians on a weekly basis to give me one new procedure. They moan and groan, but when they get done, it is they get the reward of their level 1s and their fellow employees going, wow, that saved me so much time. So I put that requirement on there, and I obviously I don't beat them or anything like that if they don't do it, but they found the value because of the level that they're at, and it's a responsibility that they have, that they've had no problem complying with that, and that's really helped that entire department become more complete, and we're constantly refining those. I think that's the first thing we do when we find out, an application has changed or an update has been made or there's a new process. The first thing we do is we go out there and we get that updated. Obviously, email is still a very common, easy thing to pass information on, but we put a point person at each level to sort of say, you know what, I'm going to take that email and I'm going to get that into the OneNote knowledge base, if you will. So really helpful, and I think that's helped with an organization standpoint, because when I started, we wrote a lot of docs in Word and maybe had them on a file share or something like that, and they ended up being all over the network and all over the world. So putting them into one sort of format and standardizing on that allows you to tie a lot of different things together. Very helpful. And then on the next slide, we talked a little bit about some management structure. So something that Dave and I implemented a while back was, once we got that true multi-level departmental structure together, that model, is we really needed someone other than me at the director level being the one that's sort of running the day-to-day. I mean, I'm running the day-to-day, but to really be in there and go, we've got a problem, let me jump on or get you help. So what we've tried to do is put some leadership at different levels in the support desk. And sorry about that, someone's at the door. So try to put some leadership at different levels. So for example, some companies will use like a level 1 lead, a level 2 lead, a level 3 lead. And Dave will talk a little bit about how people work through sort of those sort of structures. But the one thing that I found very valuable is you sort of take what is important from, you know, maybe a micro level management. So I'll take like a customer service, very important, right? So I've actually put one of the best customer service technicians, someone that's been doing this for a long time and very good with customers. I've put her in charge of that customer service, you know, leadership role. She oversees these CSATs. She makes sure that we're communicating properly. She analyzes tickets and sort of gets nitpicky on spelling and all those sort of things, just to really make sure that the communication that goes out is always professional and that we have customer service in mind. And then I put an engineering lead in place as well, and he's usually at the level 3 role. So it's sort of that step maybe before you would get promoted or move on to another department is you can be that point person from an escalation standpoint. You can be that leader to come in and say, what should we do with this? And is this something you can assist me with, or should we pass this on maybe out of the department? So it's been very, very valuable, and it actually gives me a chance to work more on the higher level process and procedure, roll some different sort of changes out, and then sort of pop my head in and out of there to be able to keep the department running smoothly. So very valuable, and I think it's one of the most positive things that I've done probably in the last 3 or 4 years was put that management structure in place with my team. Dave, you still there?
Chris, did we lose Dave?
I think we might have lost Dave.
Is he calling himself?
Yeah, I don't know.
Hey, Chris, any chance you can pick up on this slide?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So this is something that Dave has actually worked with, and I've done at the director level. I think what we've seen is very few people have that dream to sort of be in the help desk or the support desk for their entire career. Not to say there aren't those out there. Matter of fact, I have 2 that are my go-to point people that I know are like bookends, and as long as I use them and treat them with the respect that they deserve, I know they're going to be really, really happy in that department. So a lot of times that support desk is really that first place, and that's something that Dave has done a lot to sort of stress with other types of companies is when you bring employees in, bring them in at that triage role. Even if they only fill it for a certain period of time, start them there. That allows them to obviously understand the basics of that function or that role that they're serving. You can, after a period, sort of a set, you're going to specify this, but after a period of time, you're going to promote those types of individuals into that triage lead, then to that next level 1, and so on and so forth. So gives you a really good chance to put your employees in management positions or leadership positions. Gives them they truly feel like they're absolutely moving somewhere, even if it's staying within that MSP department, and it allows them to really understand the different types of responsibilities that each of these roles have. The other thing, and I briefed it earlier about the certifications, is we put these in all these reviews and these they're yearly reviews, and when they come to me about how do I get to that next department, we really use that certification as sort of a show me that you're serious about this, and I tailor them. I don't just say, hey, everybody go get this. I think the ITIL is the only one that we really push across the board, because that's just great from a service standpoint. But we've got those network guys that want to get their CCNA or their CCNPs, and so we put those sort of measures in place. Like I said, we'll incent them, and then when they get those sort of certifications, that allows us to put them in a position to possibly promote them when a position opens up. So, David, you got?
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah, I disappeared, so I don't know what happened. But one of the other things about the certifications is you can put limitations on, you can't be a level 1 lead without this certification. You can't be a level 2 lead without one of these 3 certifications, those sorts of things. And, I think it incents people, and it gives them a clear path. And a lot of times in the help desk, as much as it burns people out, one of the other problems I think that occurs is that it doesn't, they don't see how they can progress. And if you put a sort of forced progression plan in place, where you're here for so long, you do this, you get this certification, we move you up to triage lead, and then the triage lead moves up to level 1. If you put all of that in place, I think it's really helpful, and it tends to make the job stickier for a longer period of time with somebody that maybe isn't all that jazzed about being in the help desk, because they see how they're going to go, how they're going to move out, how they're going to get through that kind of help desk period, and then maybe get the opportunity to go do something else in the organization. Chris, you want to talk about the first 2? 3?
Yeah, so we briefed this earlier. We do that CSAT monthly reward. Bonuses are great. That idea of, hey, we're giving you a paycheck, so just sort of do the job. I mean, you really need to recognize the out-of-the-way, attaboy sort of stuff. And a couple of the things that we do that's more science is the CSATs and a calculation. We recognize those, on a monthly basis for, actually give them a financial side bonus. And then the weeklies, we just that's when we put that notification out to say, this is what we did on the MSP side this week. So it really does recognize the employees to everybody. The self-training, I mentioned that earlier. What we like to do is, in yearly reviews, we'll say, if you get this certification, we'll give you a one-time bonus of this and that. And those are really nice because obviously they have money in their pocket and it helps them. That cert stays with them. But you get to take advantage of a lot of those partnerships that you can have with Microsoft and Cisco and VMware by incenting your employees to go and get some certifications and become experts in those different things. And then the third one is one that I like to do just sort of when they're not expecting it. So busy week, you're getting pretty overwhelmed with tickets, and you can sort of see that stress is running pretty high and emotions are running high. Is bring lunch in and bring those sort of things in. Pretty common sense, but I try to do that more often than not, just to sort of break up the monotony of the overwhelming stress load of sort of a support desk.
The pooled bonus programs, I'm a big fan as a good way of driving metrics. And so what I like to do is take a percentage of the gross revenue that the specific team is responsible for. So in most cases, that's the entire MSP billable contracts. Take some percentage, then you take all of their hours, you put it into a pool, and then that bonus is going to be paid out based on the percentage of hours they work. But how much of that pool is paid out is then based on some of the metrics. So I always like CSAT to be a big chunk and a permanent chunk of that pool. So I like CSAT to be like 50%. So they've got to hit specific, as a group, as a team, specific CSAT numbers in order to get, say, half that pool. And then I like to have variable targets on the rest. No more than 3 targets, and I like to change them every quarter or every 6 months. That might be, for example, MTTR. So if I think that my MTTR is too high and I want to drive MTTR down, I will make the other half of the bonus. They get that if the MTTR gets below a certain number. They get some percentage of it if it gets below another number. So I think that's an excellent way to focus everyone's attention on those metrics that may get in some other way of complaining about them or bringing them up in meetings. The other reason or the other thing that doing some sort of a pooled bonus program, the other thing it does for you is it makes the team more resistant to pushing for additional resources, because every time they add another resource to the team, they're diluting their bonus. So it tends to have them work hard, especially when you have a temporary. So let's say you're doing a big onboard, so you know you've got 3-4 weeks of just a lot more tickets than is normal. You'll find that these guys then become a little bit more resistant to asking for help, a little bit more accepting of maybe some overtime, those kinds of things for some of them to get you through those busy periods. So hopefully got some nuggets out of it, the chunks maybe that you can incorporate in your own business. What kind of questions do we have out there that we can answer for you, or things we can clarify and talk about?
Yeah, Dave, it's Dave Weeks here, actually, Dave. I'm just going to jump in. We had a lot of background noise, so I actually muted the lines. So if everybody can actually, if you have questions, just throw them into the question pane, and we'll get to them over the next 15, 20 minutes. We do have a couple in already. I don't know, Chris, Dave, can you guys see those questions, or do you want me to give them to you?
No. Where are they?
Okay, no worries. One of them was you guys talked about the next MSP ticket tool for ConnectWise and that gadget. So a couple people are asking, where is that available?
Well, that's an interesting question. So I've been thinking about selling it, because that's probably one of the most requested things that people ask me about. So I may put that up, because I mean that has been probably the number one issue, I think, with a lot of my clients is how to deal with that next serving ticket. So if you're interested in that, send me an email and we can talk about that, because
yeah, it's something that we use religiously, and it's actually gone through a couple of iterations to the point where one of the bigger maybe issues with a tool like that is you can't see sort of what's behind it. It's telling you what's there, but if you're taking your eyes off of the board and not scanning your ticket board, and you're just looking up for that next ticket, you don't know how many sort of unworked tickets are behind it. So we've added, something right up at the top, and then we've also sort of tailored so you can see that current ticket, how long it's actually been open and unworked. And it's really been nice. It really helps with that cherry picking. It makes that go away, and the team becomes a lot more well-rounded very quickly.
Okay, well, that's good. One of the other questions that we had, and I think this is a really good question, is what's your guys' experience or guidelines when you work with help desks where there's a mix of time and material tickets and those with a fixed price contract? So for time-based billing, what they're saying is, if you're more efficient, it's a reduction in revenue, where fixed price efficiency means higher margins. So, how do you combine both into one single help desk organization?
I always recommend that they split them. Always, 100% of the time. I mean, this really goes back to serving two masters, and I don't know how you can successfully do it. And I've found that every time I've got a client trying to do it, which I would say probably half of my clients are trying to do it, their efficiency is way worse than when they dedicate people. So my recommendation is that you dedicate specific people, even if that means reorganizing your help desk a little bit so that your time and materials guys, which are driven by utilization and are measured by utilization, can be beholden to utilization. Your help desk, utilization is almost, you want it to go the opposite way. You want your utilization really to go down, which means that you have capacity to sell. You don't want it to be high. And driving high utilization for the sake of utilization on the help desk, is really counter to what you want to do. So I'm a very big proponent of not trying to mix that at all.
And I agree with Dave 100%, with the caveat that obviously when you get into rare situations, and this has happened to us a lot, we're lucky enough to have it split out that way. But if you get into situations where, we've got a lot of those billable customers calling in, like apparently there's an Office 365 outage right now. So, if we're getting a lot of those sort of things, it doesn't benefit the customer to, be penalized for, okay, we don't have a billable resource available, so we'll have a technician in our MSP department, do the work on that. But from how does that time get billed, that is handled by someone over in that billable department, so that time can be adjusted and said, well, this is how much time was really worked on this. So that's the rare situation where we'll sort of ad hocly work those time and materials tickets, is when it really just makes sense because we've got the resources available to just put somebody on that and help them and not penalize the customer.
And the converse of that as well, which is probably more common, which is pull your time and material guy onto your help desk because, you've got ticket count issues, or, you've got an outage where you've got more tickets coming in.
Yeah, that happens more often, correct.
Like when Office 365 goes down. All right.
Right, right.
Okay. Yeah, Chris, you might have to run soon. I don't know.
I'm making hand signals.
All right, perfect. So one of the other questions that came in from Pete was help desk levels. What staff numbers would you guys typically expect to see at each level, and how do you guys calculate that?
Well, so that Erlang C calculation, which is, again, it's a complicated calculation, and it only works when you have higher numbers. But, I like to use some thumbnail kind of guidelines, which is, most help desk technicians can deal with 12 tickets a day in a typical day. I like to kind of rough all those things in and look at where their ticket volume is and how to whack they are. And then you start to look at effective billable rates and those kinds of things. But you always, if you're going for that multi-level service model, you want that pyramid so that you have the most guys and girls at that bottom level one, and fewer as you go up that pyramid.
Yeah, and to add to that, what that top of that pyramid really gives you is obviously the SME, the guy or girl that knows the most about something, that can be the point person when we run into problems. But if we're documenting and we're proceduralizing the majority of the things we run into, hopefully we get to a point where those level 3s are kind of freed up. So this is where you can really use those other levels to sort of backfill where the need is. So obviously, if you've got a Monday and you're 1,000 calls or 100 calls or whatever it may be, you want to be staffed properly, and that's where Dave and I sort of talked about. You want those floaters, you want the flex. There may be a guy that works both that billable but can come over in a pinch and answer the phone and triage for a while. So we try to keep that level 1 staffed enough to basically handle on average 50 to 55% closure rate of tickets, as well as all the phone and incoming calls. So the pyramid is there's actually some math out there that you can do, right, where you can say, hey, this is how many hours on average. We talked about dollars per ticket. You could take just a dump of your last year's worth of tickets and figure out on average how long it takes you to work a ticket, and really do some math around that to see that your level 1 should only be spending 15, 20 minutes Your level 2s maybe half an hour, and your level 3s are the ones that are the longer tickets. So with those numbers, you can sort of ballpark it, but unfortunately, it's not an exact science, and you have to be flexible in order for it to work really efficiently. And you can't be afraid to pull a level 2 up to a level 1 sort of on the fly or more permanently if they aren't meeting the expectations that you've sort of put in place.
Okay. That's good. One of the other ones that came up was, how do you guys handle tickets via phone? Do you just have them make a ticket and place it on the board, or do you handle immediately, obviously not counting emergency tickets?
So there's two ways, and we've done it both ways. When you're in that third model, all you're basically doing as a triage technician is asking enough questions to create that ticket, and then queue it up for that gadget, right? That is a change of process because they've talked to somebody, right? But it may be 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, based on an SLA before that ticket's picked up, based on the amount of time. The key to making that successful is using that triage to sort of follow up and say, hey, your ticket's in queue. I can't give you an exact time, but this is where you're going to be. It's been successful, but from a customer satisfaction standpoint, nothing is better than first call resolution. So when you move to a true multi-level service model, what we're doing now is we take that triage staff, they answer every single phone call, every single email ticket, and obviously the phone calls are the ones that they'll take and they'll say, let me put you on hold and see if I can get you a level 1 technician right away. So we've tried to move to that, and that's something tough to move to because you've got to be very efficient with how long you're spending on tickets. You've got to be okay to sort of put a ticket that's a lower priority on hold temporarily to be able to answer the phone, and you can't be afraid to pass it off to the next level. And that's really the key with multi-level is, when you get to that 15, 20 minutes, if you're not going to finish that in the next minute or two, and you should know that the better you get, you're going to pass that to that next tier.
Okay, that's good.
And I think the other one other thing to add to that, I think one way to improve customer satisfaction when you're not having that first call resolution is that you make the SLAs very clear to your customers, but the other thing you do is you give them the ability to bump priorities. So if they don't agree with the way that you've prioritized it into your SLA, you give them the opportunity to actually request a higher SLA, which gives them quicker response. And then what you do to manage that, to keep people from doing that consistently and essentially breaking your SLA, is you make the VCIO in charge of watching the percentage of escalated or bumped priority tickets by customer, and you put it on their shoulders to deal with the clients that are using that too much.
Yeah, that's a good point. One of the other ones that came up was interested to know what provisions you guys have in place for out-of-hours coverage.
Well, some clients, DRS, for example, is a 24/7 operation, so they've got help desk people there all the way around the clock. It really has to do with how you design your SLA. So if you have most of my clients have just a workday type of an SLA, and they have the ability to escalate a ticket after hours, but they charge, for anything handled out after hours that isn't a priority 1 issue. Mm-hmm. And then they take their priority 1 issues and they pay them out, and the ability to pay it out by the clients. I mean, it's definitely a tough situation to manage because, you do have those things come up. But I'll tell you what, managing 24/7 help desk is a tough it's a tough thing too. So
yeah, no, for sure.
And we put on call a rotation in place at DRS, even though we're 24/7. Our off shift staff is maybe filling a number of different roles, so we always have a technician on call and then basically a manager as a secondary on call to be able to make sure that if there's ever a question of is this something that can wait till 8 or do we need to jump on this right away, that we get those things taken care of.
Okay, for sure. And one of the other ones was percentage of, text by tier. So do you guys, see it at 45% as tier 1, 30 tier 2, something? Do you guys have that, or would that follow kind of the same, formulaic type review that you guys do?
Yeah, it's typically a formula, but it's typically half of them are level 1 and triage or more. One thing that I notice is it depends on the product that you're selling. I have clients that sell a very basic managed service product, a lot of workstations, those kinds of things. And then I have other clients who sell, more server-oriented and security managed services, which tends to drive fewer level 2s and fewer level 1s and more level 2s and 3s. So I don't think there's a magic number. But you definitely want to pyramid that as much as possible.
Yeah, and when you start to branch, if you're really truly going to a multi-level service model, when you start to branch those departments out, you're going to find that it's a lot easier to sort of almost have it 50-50, whereas the 2s and the 3s are working together. Maybe they're the escalation point, and the 3s do the best they can to sort of sit next to or listen to or watch, and they're almost mentors to the issue. And then as the 2s have the training that is needed, then we truly make it into a 1, 2, and a 3. So I've seen that work. That's actually what we did for several months before we truly branched it out, just so that you're comfortable that you've got enough people to analyze the board, answer the email, alert, and phone, and then obviously escalate out anything that isn't completed.
Okay. So we still have some more questions coming in, but I do want to introduce the illustrious Mike Cullen, who has joined us in the room. So Mike is here right now, and any questions that we don't get to, we will filter them to Dave and Chris after, and I'm sure you guys don't mind kind of reaching out to these partners as needed on those.
I hope everybody found value in this presentation today. I know I did. And from my perspective, the goal of this group has always been to be a collaborative group. And I just wanted to sort of question the group as to whether they'd be willing to share email addresses so that they can contact each other on a more regular basis when they have questions in terms of running their business. So I've always wanted this to be collaborative. How does the group feel about us sharing out the email addresses? Does anybody have a problem with it?
We're getting a lot of I'm good with it and fine for us through the question pane. So.
Okay, cool. That was the first point. So we'll probably we'll figure out we'll post this somewhere. We'll figure out how to get the data to you. At the same time, we'll probably share the email addresses of the attendees at the group. Now, a couple of other things I wish to discuss is we didn't have the Partner Summit this year just because it got bundled in with SolarWinds, and then of course they couldn't get going on it. So to replace that for the elites and super elites, we will have 2 elite versions sessions going on. Now these sessions will be a 1-day session. We'll share product roadmap. We'll survey the group as to prioritization of features, things like that. We will go to a breakout in the afternoon to deal with challenges from a technical perspective and also from a business perspective. The elite group for North America will be in Chicago on October the 24th, and for Europe will be in Amsterdam on November 3rd. They're both designed to be 1-day events where we want to get as much information to you about what's going on at Enable, but also to bring in, some presentations like this, which are partner-led, that people tend to find pretty valuable. So if people have any suggestions on content that they would like to see at the Elite sessions, please email Dave or myself directly on that. And really, we also have another one of these sessions coming up. Dave, how soon, to cover hardware as a service? Ted Warner's offered to present on it.
Yeah.
It was one of the things that was requested last year at the summit, so we've asked Ted to put together a presentation, and that'll probably occur within the next 60 days.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank everybody for attending. I'd like to solicit any feedback that you've got on this, whether you found this valuable or whether you would do changes in the type of data. We've got Dave Wilkinson's and Chris Massey's email information, so you can contact them directly. And with that, I'd like to thank both Dave and Chris. I thought they did an excellent job. I think it's always great when we share information. I was really happy to see them sharing their best practices and their metrics on their help desk. I think that's really useful, and I think that's the way that this group should conduct themselves. But I thought they did a great event, and with that, I'd like to thank them and look forward to the next time that we meet in a session like this.
Thanks, everybody.